Well, hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's panel discussion. We've got representatives here from two KaiNexus customers. And I think the thing that's fascinating about this discussion today is that there's going to be, I think, similarity and overlap coming from two organizations that are very different from each other. So you'll learn about those organizations and our panelists in a second. But today's session is focused on how to have a successful KaiNexus rollout. And we are joined by John Brown, the continuous improvement manager of a company called Crosby's, based in Canada. And we're joined by Rob Pitney, process improvement engagement and system co-owner. We'll hear more about that title. I stumbled through that, but we'll let you introduce yourself, Rob, and tell more about that title. From an organization that I've had the chance to visit a couple of times, UMass Memorial Health. So we're looking at the food industry and healthcare, hospital health system type settings, and we'll look for similarities in terms of continuous improvement practices and maybe differences. And we'll talk about how both of these organizations have incorporated KaiNexus into the improvement work that they do. Put the focus on our panelists. So again, we're joined by John Brown and Rob Pitney. John, maybe we can start with you in terms of introductions. If you can tell us a little bit about Crosby's, the company, and then it would be good to hear a little bit about your background with lean or continuous improvement, or however you would frame that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Crosby's is an old organization. They've been based in the Maritimes in Canada for 150 years. We make a variety of food and beverage products, both for retail and for business to business. So we do a lot of bulk supply to bakeries and places like that. We do powdered beverages, drink mixes, and we do a lot of co-manufacturing for some of the big players in the food market as well. So the majority of my career has been in quality assurance, actually, both in the UK and Canada. And in 2016, whilst at Crosby's, I moved to the position of continuous improvement manager. So that wasn't a position that existed. So Crosby's really didn't have a continuous improvement culture or a platform. So that led me to try and investigate, looking for software solutions of how we might best use, what we could use to sort of gather the information for our improvements and track and trend, which led me to find KaiNexus.
And we're very glad you did. So we'll get to hear more about your practices during the hour here today. So thank you, John. And we're joined also by Rob Pitney. Rob, if you could do a similar introduction about your organization and if you can explain your role as well.
Sure. Rob Pitney with UMass Memorial Health. I joined the organization about 6 months ago. So I'm new there. UMass Memorial Health is a hospital-based system. We have about 15,000 caregivers. We have, I believe, 4 hospitals currently. We're expanding to a 5th come close of the transaction this summer. Wide range from true hospital services to mental health, substance abuse, adult care, memory care, all kinds of things that we do. And we have moved from a paper-based system to this virtual system that KaiNexus has graciously allowed us to purchase and or at least have license fees on. But it's a quite the challenge to roll it out to 15,000 people. I am a part of our human resources department. And you'd say, why human resources? And that's what I asked when I applied for the job. But they, at UMass Memorial Health, the president and CEO is a doctor, and he completely buys into lean, Dr. Dixon. And he says his career has been made because of lean. and he would not be in his position without it. My lean experience started many moons ago in the early 90s, actually, with Pareto charts by hand and manual count charts and everything before we had any computers. But I became a certified Lean Six Sigma black belt in 2008. I've spent 30 years in the health insurance industry. So I've switched teams to go to the provider side, and I'm learning a whole bunch. But the principles of Lean and Six Sigma apply no matter where you are, really. Regardless of the industry, you can make this work.
Yeah. And you're right. Dr. Dixon, I've had the privilege of interviewing him a couple of times on podcasts and as part of a panel at a conference. I've had the chance to visit there. And you're right. I appreciate that Dr. Dixon has been open to ideas from other industries, but then to be a leader and to help drive the continuous improvement journey there at UMass Health. So we'll get a chance to explore that a little bit more. And I'm glad you all are also customers. You've been at UMass customer for just a couple of months, correct?
Officially, we began our deployment with pilots on January 24th, I believe. Whatever that Monday was.
Okay. And John at Crosby's, I don't know how long you've been a customer. So.
I would say probably getting on for 18 months to 2 years.
So there might be some lessons learned that you have at this point that could be shared with UMass. And, it's different industries, different size organizations, but we'll look and see what sort of ideas we can bounce back and forth for your own benefit and for the benefit of the audience or for whoever ends up watching this here. So, maybe jump into some of the detail about continuous improvement practices. Sometimes people would frame this as part of a lean management system. If we look at the practice of huddles, I was wondering if we could, kind of share some of your practices about that. How do you use KaiNexus to facilitate that? John, if you'd like to go first, please.
Yeah. So prior to KaiNexus, we would hold a meeting that we have every day called our daily operational review. So that's where we would look at the previous day's production, look at the numbers, look at the any quality issues, any safety issues, and we would do that traditionally around a whiteboard. And so we would talk about the things that went on the day before, but the challenge with the whiteboard was always keeping it up to date, not really being able to look at the information that we're tracking and trending in a live view or in a graphical view very easily. So you can imagine it was all writing on a whiteboard with pens. So we worked with Taylor, our account manager, to develop our daily operational review process in KaiNexus. So we've been doing that now for around a year, and it's going really well. So we track things like safe and unsafe observations, quality concerns, production line performance. So within KaiNexus, we've got our graph showing the data on the cards in the boards. We even track our 5S compliance on there. So every day we look at our 5S compliance. Just Do It's is a program that we implemented as well. So obviously simple, easy improvements. So even that we track. So we have a weekly metric that we expect to have 2 new improvements completed and brought forward from the team. And then the real way that it's helped us is employee recognition is a big part. So we do our employee recognition through the system as well. So that helps us make sure that everybody understands that they've been recognized. And when we do improvements, they get spread around. And we actually have the slideshow feature now that we use in KaiNexus as well. So our daily operational review boards are displayed in slideshows in our lunchrooms and in our main office. And the real benefit that we've found is the ability in KaiNexus to track all the action items that come from the door meeting, and especially from the perspective of reviewing the effectiveness of the solution that we put in place. So one of our pitfalls before was that tracking, it's okay to bring forward action items, but once you've implemented it, you then obviously need to go back and make sure the implementation was successful. So in KaiNexus, we do the review and it automatically sets it out for a month after to get reviewed. So then we look at the items that are due for review every day as well. So we found that transition from sort of paper and pen to digital to be really beneficial and quite easy to do in KaiNexus.
Great. And you talk about 2 improvements per person. That's per what time frame?
So we actually have 8 different Just Do It programs in our organization. So each department has its own Just Do It program. And so our cadence there is we expect each department to come up with 2 improvements each week. And we set the champion or the department the goal of also implementing 2 improvements each week. And obviously they are primarily easy to do, quick wins, quick fixes. But that's something that we track now, as I say, in our daily operational review, because it's something that's really easy to lose sight of. So we just have like a bar chart showing that's got our expectation per department and the actual that we get.
All right. Well, thanks. So we'll come back and we'll talk more about what a lot of people would label bottom up improvement or just do it. So small Kaizen. And I know that's been a big part of the equation at UMass Health. So Rob, could you share a little bit about the huddle process? And I know that predates KaiNexus. So it'd be good to hear about some of, here we always talk about methodology, the leadership that's involved, and then the technology. If you can share a little bit on all 3 aspects when it comes to huddles.
Well, since I just started 6 months ago, my experience has been tribal through the folks that have been here. And primarily it's been paper boards and whiteboards. However, because of the pandemic, last March, we had to quickly transition a lot of our employees that are based in Worcester, Mass, home. Okay, I'm working from home still, and the huddle around a board didn't work anymore. So there were some teams that experimented with some Excel methodology, some SharePoint methodology, even something called the Trello board. And this is what was the catalyst for us moving towards looking at this type of a solution. And so huddles are done in both forms, actually 3 forms we look at. One is the in-person team, and that still happens today at the hospitals. And one is the completely remote team, such as HR right now or IT right now. So that's all being done virtually. And that's why we started with our support staff in our deployment. So everybody that was work at home was first, so we could get the most value out of it and get them reconnected. And then secondly, we have the hybrid team, which is some people are at home, some are at the hospital or the facility or the group home or whatever the case might be. And you have to build the board or build an electronic media presence, think large screen television, to facilitate from. And this is very much where we're in the learning phase right now and the experimenting phase. And some teams are catching on really fast to the new world, and some are not quite as quick. But, you know, we're going to deploy 40 pilot equipment sites, different teams. And these teams are doing more of the just do it type of improvements than grand projects. We have A3s for more of that. We're working on building out project management within KaiNexus, but we wanted to walk before we could run. And it all starts with the huddle team. We currently have, we believe, 650 to 700 teams. Right now, we have 400 teams deployed in Innovation Station, which is our name for KaiNexus. So it's evolving, the huddle team, but it's really driven by, that group of people talking about whatever their day-to-day problems are that need to be addressed.
Yeah. And a lot of our customers use, different modes of improvement, if you will. When we started off, it's coming up on 10 years since we came to market, and our first customers were really, and the software was really targeted around, John, what you call just do it's, small Kaizen. Greg Jacobson, our CEO, co-founder, was inspired by Masaki Amai's book Kaizen, which really focuses on getting everybody involved in small improvements, small redesigns. And what our software does has grown with our customers. As customers say, well, we're also doing A3s. We also have projects. We also have strategic initiatives. And so the software capability has grown, based on what our customers are doing, so they can have all of that improvement in one place. I wanted to ask, this was going to be question 5, but maybe we'll just build on what Rob was saying about the pandemic. John, I know you have some experiences to share about how the pandemic affected your day-to-day work, how it affected your operations at Crosby's, if you could share a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. So when COVID first hit, we were actually still trying to develop some of the rollout of KaiNexus with Taylor, and we'd got some meetings scheduled that we would obviously have on a frequent basis. But as it turned out, we really struggled with keeping employees in the building. So I kind of quickly went from a continuous in management position to being a line operator to keep the wheels of the business running. And so, yeah, that was a big challenge. We are at a stage now where we've kind of got we've got good people back in the building. People are back in their normal roles and their normal positions. But it really impacted Crosby's multifold. So we were short of people, but our business was doubled or quadrupled because people were staying at home, and a lot of the things that we sell are baking ingredients, so people were at home baking more, but we didn't have the people to make the product. So it was a real challenge for us. And then obviously the whole supply chain has been affected too. So our business today is still benefiting, I would say, from COVID, from a sort of sales perspective, but the raw material supply chain is a real struggle right now. Just delays and having to try and plan out procurement and things like that's really difficult. So yeah, so I for me it was very valuable going and working on the production lines. I actually learned a lot that actually helped support improvements, and I came away with ideas that I'd never have got without that experience.
So demand for, people are staying at home more, they're eating at home, they're wanting comfort foods of different types.
So we do hot chocolate in pouches. So that's something that's really people like that when they want to be comfortable. Mm-hmm. And then obviously our prime product's molasses, which is found in a lot of breads and baked goods. And so, there's a lot of recipes that call for it.
And rum. It's a raw material for rum.
Yes, and rum, which can be very helpful.
Yeah. So, Rob, I know your time at UMass has only been during the pandemic, but what do you have other impressions to share? From what your colleagues and others are saying about adapting to pandemic times, or maybe now if we're seeing light at the end of the tunnel, do you have thoughts about how things will adapt as more people maybe come back to the traditional workplace setting?
Yeah, the pandemic became the be all and end all. And a lot of our, quote, improvement work got dropped. Teams stopped huddling. They stopped meeting because of various challenges. People were shuffled all around the organization, doing other jobs other than their own. You know, we stood up a vaccination facility. We stood up a field hospital, which was one of the largest, that was the most beds utilized in the country. We built out testing processes early on last spring. You know, there were so much things that became much more important, but actually the nuts and bolts of continuous improvement and idea sharing and idea development to problem solve were all very active during this time. It just wasn't necessarily formulated or captured in a database, you know, and recorded that way. So the evolution to identifying the catalyst to the need to have a common solution across the network to enable us to see what's really going on is what I think is the real benefit of KaiNexus, because we go from practically zero grit information, you know, a number of counts of ideas, to now being able to monitor them through the various phases. And it's really eye-opening. And we chose purposely to have a completely open system. So every caregiver or think employee can see every other team, including the executive team, you know, the core executive leadership. Their team is for the public to see. So it raises awareness and importance. And we strive to have one idea per person per year is the goal. So we're still only a third of the way through the process, and we haven't even gotten, you know, 3/4 of our staff, or a third of our staff is not yet on board. That happens June 1st.
Right. They're not yet a KaiNexus. They don't have a KaiNexus login.
No, they don't. They're not turned on, so to speak.
Sure.
And we're still building out the network locations for it.
Yeah. So there's been sort of a parallel track where over a period of a couple of years, continuous improvement, engagement, and practices have spread. And now on top of that is the spread of the software, the system for people to use.
The continuous engagement started in 2012 when Dr. Dixon arrived. Yeah. And it's built up, and then it kind of took a little hiatus or dip volume-wise in fiscal year 2020. But it's picking back up, and I think we're going to bring it to the next level as far as our ability to, let's call it, borrow ideas from our similar counterparts in a different hospital that do the same function as we do.
Right. Yeah. So kind of moving on to, we'll talk more about the software, but this is a portion. If we label the segment, we might label this embarrass some colleagues, meaning my colleagues at KaiNexus, because, you know, the KaiNexus solution is not just the software. You know, Rob, you mentioned, license fee, and, you know, so there's a contractual agreement, but, you know, we've built a great team at KaiNexus. And, you know, John, you mentioned Taylor already. And I guess, you know, the question for each of you is to talk a little bit about the support that you get from different people at KaiNexus in getting started, ramping things up. If you need help and support over time, we have an opportunity to give them some recognition and just to maybe share, you know, of how they've helped you. John, if you can go first with that, please.
Yeah, so Taylor's been our account manager since the start. And before that, we worked with the Rollout team. I really can't remember the name of the people that we worked with, but it was very organized, very well done, and very, very good support. So basically from what I really liked was from the very beginning, it was all being rolled out and tailored to suit what we needed from a system. From the point of view of the structure, the departments, the different programs that we wanted to do. And then obviously once we got into the meat of it all, working with Taylor to develop our particular solutions, whether it be how we would do an A3 or how we would do a DMAIC, or just how we wanted to see the Just Do It programs rollout, was all very good. And to the extent that our VP of operations has asked me a few times, like, John, how much is this costing us all the time that you keep spending with the KaiNexus team? And I'm like, it's all part and parcel of what we already pay. So I can work with Taylor on a weekly basis, or I can work with Taylor on a monthly basis, and the support's been invaluable. And even to the extent that, Taylor will reach out when enhancements roll out and say, okay, John, we've enhanced this. We had a conversation this morning about the badges enhancement, to see whether it can help improve our recognition program. So it's refreshing, to be honest, the way that there's that approach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's great to hear, and we'll give a shout out to Taylor Edwards. She's in a relatively new role, manager of customer success, and that team and that function. It's about being responsive, and I think, as you were describing, sometimes being proactive to reach out and say, here's something that we think can help you be more successful in terms of your improvement work, and that's good for your success is our success, is how we view this.
For me, dealing with a person that does know our business and has played a part in developing the solution. So we're not dealing with, 1 in 1,000 people who really doesn't know our business. We're dealing with the same person consistently, and that gives a real value to the support.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing that, John. Rob, and again, recap, you're a little earlier in your adoption or rollout or whatever terms you might use, deployment or
Cade, and I don't remember Cade Jansen, I believe.
Cade Jansen, yes.
Was our original kind of architect, kind of expert at what it can and can't do, that helped us and the team before I got there begin to build out and design what the solution would do. And our goal was to keep it fairly simple to begin with, to make sure we got adoption, because we used an advisory group to help us do that internally, of team owners and team leaders that helped us craft that. So Cade was really there at the onset, and he did the heavy lifting as far as making it real. Okay. Yeah. And Adam Darnell, the training man.
Training and enablement manager.
He is outstanding. He is the voice of KaiNexus. I listened to all the videos and watched them, and was very impressed with his level of detail. And he's been a great partner. He's designed and put together a number of custom videos for us to help based on our version of the KaiNexus solution. And lastly, and the leader for us is also Taylor Edwards. Mm-hmm. She is outstanding. And the fact that we share her with John is surprising, because I guess we're a very demanding customer, or a very needy customer, being 15,000 employees large. But she's doing a great job, and she's, she doesn't say no. She let me take that back and bring it to our product development team. And, that's a great idea. And, there might be a way to do that. And, hearing what John's doing with it, using it for their reward system, I want to hear more, because the more you can bring into it, makes it more visible and makes it more efficient, is kind of how I believe we're headed. The more improvement related, employee related things we can do from both an HR and an improvement perspective, efficiency, quality, the better off we're going to be in the long run.
Yeah. I mean, we want engaged customers Rob. So demanding is not a word we would use. We'd rather have you giving us feedback and pulling on people's help. You mentioned Adam Darnell. He does the product update videos that are available on the KaiNexus YouTube channel. There's the monthly, we call them office hours for customers to tune in and learn about new features and to interact. So you're right, Adam does a great job with those. But yeah, one other thing just to highlight and reinforce for the audience when we talk about how your two organizations represent so many different dimensions of the KaiNexus customer base, just to reemphasize that size and scale. 150 employees, you said, John?
Yeah.
15,000 employees in Rob's organization. We're there to support all of you and the work that you're doing in different ways. So we have a question. We're going to take one of the audience questions, and then we're going to take a short break for some announcements and give John and Rob a chance to have a sip of water and catch their breath. We have a question that came in from Lydia, and I think this is a question for either of you. Do you set year-over-year cost savings expectations? How does this tool facilitate and track those savings?
UMass does not.
So tell us more about that. And I think there's sort of a philosophical reason for that.
I believe so. It was one of the things that shocked me when I first came on board. It's that little improvements blowing in the wind can move everybody rowing in the same direction is a huge deal. And if you get everybody rowing in the same direction, you're keeping it simple and you're not disengaging the people, because one of the fears or misuses of improvement has been headcount reduction, right? Mm-hmm. We've all been a part of that if you're part of Lean or part of Six Sigma. And that's not what it's about. It's about making a better place to work and delivering better care for our patients. Mm-hmm. Our true North goal is to be the best place to get care and the best place to give care as an organization in Massachusetts. So we don't want to detract from that. And I think you could end up spending a lot of time spinning your wheels on those goals. Are they not important? No, they're very important. But I think if you get people going in the right direction, that's going to come, and there are people that are responsible for that piece of it. And we'll just be continuous improvement experts. Yeah.
Yeah. And, I know from talking to your CEO, Dr. Dixon, and later on, after I do the announcements, I'll put a link in the chat. I had a chance to interview him some years ago where he talks about using Kaizen or continuous improvement as a financial turnaround strategy, that when he came in and took the job, there was a very heavy debt load. Financial performance for the system was really struggling. And so I think, there's this interesting coexistence of some organizations would, let's say, we're not going to demand a cost savings for every improvement, but we are at the same time recognizing that there are benefits that are going to flow through to the bottom line, because that's important, whether it's survival mode or just getting back into, thriving instead of just surviving. So thank you for sharing that, Rob. John, what are your thoughts on that? How does Crosby's look at cost savings, or maybe more generally tracking other benefits from your improvement work?
Until this year, we'd not really got any expectations on cost savings, but we've actually set this year through continuous improvement. The goal this year is to save $500,000 in cost savings. So we are tracking that, and the way we do that in KaiNexus is when we get to the end point of a project or an improvement, we'll obviously review the savings and the anticipated savings, but we actually get our accounting team to verify that these are the improvements seen, what we expected it to see. So KaiNexus makes it really easy for that to flow into their workflow. So what we did, again, with Taylor's help, was Every improvement we measure for an impact on safety, an impact on morale, quality, whether there's any quality benefits to it. So we built out some metrics around that. And then obviously hard savings and soft savings. So one of our challenges has always been before KaiNexus was that when we were doing continuous improvement, somebody might be keeping it in a Excel sheet, somebody else in another department would be writing it on a whiteboard. And now in KaiNexus, it kind of takes you through that at the end of the improvement, the way we've built it. So nobody has to think about it because it's just part and parcel of the workflow. And then obviously it all wraps up together in the reports that have been built. So that's how we do it, and we do it. And it's really nice because we can share that with anybody and everybody that has access.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that sharing, Rob, you mentioned that earlier. That's one common theme across a lot of our customers. There's this philosophical view that transparency is a good thing for many, many reasons. And then just come back to the question about facilitating and tracking savings. The KaiNexus software is very flexible to fit different organizations' needs and frameworks and what they're tracking. So when people do improvements, whether it's small improvements or projects or A3s or however it's labeled, organizations can configure, do you want to track, do you want to categorize things? Safety, quality, cost, delivery, morale are common categories. People can also then track specific numbers. And I'm going to put a link to the chat that if people want to take a look later, we do have a page on our website where we publish the cumulative total customer impact numbers. And our CEO, Greg Jacobson, sends out an email to the team every month of what those updated numbers are. Again, like they're out on the website. But Greg labels it, and I know he sincerely means it, that it's his favorite email to send every month. So I'm going to share this briefly, and then I'm going to switch over to slides with some announcements. So, if you go to that page, there's a cumulative, and again, this is customer self-reported data across all of our customers over now 10 years, 359,000 improvements, almost $5 billion financial impact. But then you can also start breaking that down into cost savings, cost avoidance, revenue enhancement, time savings, quality improvement, safety improvement. Some of those improvements, as important as they are difficult to translate into dollar terms. So that's why we like to talk about a wide range of categories of benefits. That if you think we share the philosophy, if we improve in all these other areas, it will flow through to the bottom line and in different ways. So just wanted to share that. And then let me just bring up real quickly a few announcements. A couple of announcements here real quickly. So I mentioned earlier, they just did one yesterday. So the June training team office hours has not yet been announced, but that'll be announced soon. If you're on our email list, you'll get notified that as a customer. Adam Darnell, you see pictured there, and Noah Parator from our team are doing those together. And then also want to let you know that our next presentation style webinar, we just hosted one on Tuesday. We do these monthly. Dr. John Kanegi is going to be doing a webinar on June 15th. The registration is going to be open real soon. He's got a really interesting perspective. He's a medical doctor. He's been involved. He's written a book called he talks about adaptive design, Designed to Adapt, I think is the name of the book. And he's going to be giving a presentation that I think will have broad appeal to people across industries, kind of building upon what's often referred to as the Toyota Kata methodology or the improvement kata. John has developed some interesting perspectives on what he calls a leadership kata. So the registration for that will be open soon. You can keep an eye out for that at kainexus.com/webinars. Or if you're signed up to receive our blog posts and other updates via email, we'll tell you about these when they're available. So I also want to mention, like I said, our blog at blog.kainexus.com. We have our continuous improvement webinar library that includes the session that Dr. Joy Dobson did on Tuesday about a very innovative vaccination clinic design. That's all available if you go to kainexus.com/webinars or our YouTube library. And then we also have a podcast, the KaiNexus Continuous Improvement Podcast. You can find it anywhere you find or listen to podcasts, and the audio of today's session will be in the podcast feed later today. Okay, so that is it for the announcement. So we'll jump back into some other questions. Maybe we'll dive a little bit more into the software. How do you use KaiNexus to help facilitate and support? Maybe let's talk a little bit more specifically here about the bottom-up improvement work, the just do it's, the small Kaizen improvements that you're trying to engage everybody in. John, do you want to go first?
Yeah. We weren't doing just do it's up to probably 2 years ago, and we visited. One of the things we were doing when we were on the beginning of our continuous improvement journey was visiting other facilities to try and learn and understand what was succeeding and working there. And so we were exposed to just do it in one of their facilities, and it seemed like such an obvious avenue to go down. So we rolled that out, and we were doing just do it's, but our just do it's were paper driven. So people writing it down on a piece of paper, handing it into their supervisor or the lead hand putting it into an Excel sheet, and then, somebody else looking at the Excel sheet and trying to figure out what was going on, and then trying to implement it and then measure the improvement. It was all very clunky. So when we got KaiNexus, it was one of the things that I asked Taylor around and about, and so we rolled that out in KaiNexus, and so now we use the kiosk feature, or we did use the kiosk feature for people to be able to go to the tablet, put in their improvement. And the nice way that it was designed was that if I had an improvement, I was in the accounting department, it would go to my champion. So we had a champion of continuous improvement in each area. It would go to my champion in the accounting department so that we knew who was looking after it. That champion would get notified, and then the system would take them through the way we developed it, take them through the measuring, the impact of the improvement that was made. So now we have a huddle board for each Just Do It program in each area. So the accounting team have one, the quality assurance team have one, the operations team have one. And so they can all go, everybody can go there, see the improvements that have been brought forward, who had the idea. And then the other really important part is, if it's not an idea that we're going to implement, then letting people know we're not implementing it and these are the reasons why. And that's all works very well in KaiNexus and a lot better than the system we had before.
Yeah, it's just to emphasize that point. I think the goal, it's often stated, is you want to be implementing something around 90% of the time when an idea comes in, and that doesn't mean the initial idea necessarily, but it means you have a conversation, you discuss it, you find something that at least somewhat addresses the issue. That's part of what's taught by Toyota, Masaki Amai, and Alan Robinson, who I believe I think because he's local. I think Robinson is at UMass Boston. I think he's had some influence on the improvement approach there at UMass Health, if I'm not mistaken. But one of the things that was really reinforced to me, and we try to pass along, is if you do have to say no, have that conversation and give that feedback, as you were putting it, John, the reasons why. It's not because we don't like you, that there may be, like I've seen in healthcare sometimes, maybe this is true in food production, there may be some regulatory reason why something seems like a good idea. And, there's this barrier and we can't do anything about it. So we'll try to explain that kindly and do a little education maybe. But I think that's one really important thing, to just close the loop and not just have the idea rejected. I think of the old suggestion box system where somebody might have their paper form literally rubber stamped with something cruel like rejected or denied.
Well, I think for us, that was one of the things that really helped foster engagement as well, because people had put their ideas in and then they were like, okay, nothing's happened. And so, like, where's my idea gone? Did you implement it? You're going to implement it? And then people don't want to put their ideas forward because they don't think they're being heard. So there's no way to lose them now, because as soon as they put submit, it's in the system. So,
yeah. Because I hear that a lot. People say, we have a lot of good ideas, we just forget to follow up. Or, that's why we emphasize, we never call KaiNexus an electronic suggestion box, because there are, and Rob, okay, so I'm going to ask you to elaborate on that, Rob, nodding his head vigorously for those who are just listening. Because there are so many, if you will, fatal flaws in that old suggestion box model, and research shows suggestions would get rejected more like 97% of the time. And like you said, John, God, yeah, that's demoralizing. So I think, the worst thing you can do is say, we want your ideas, and then collect those ideas and then not take action. That's worse than never asking. So Rob, I'd love to hear your thoughts. You perked up, you shook your head. Tell us more.
Yes, when we purposely don't want a suggestion box. This is about employees' ideas for their immediate work area and their scope. It is not about the big picture, really. It's more about what they do every day. And that's why everybody has access to our KaiNexus application. Anybody can go to their own mobile phone or the phones that the company provides to 5,000 of our workers that Taylor helped us push out the connection to input at 724. And it's up to the team of your peers, led by probably a supervisor or manager, to facilitate or rotate the facilitation and come to the agreement of what's priority and what's less priority. And some things may be deferred, some things may be planned. We really tried to match our physical idea boards layout, because there was a standard layout for that. And we tried to do it within KaiNexus in our idea boards for each and every one of those 400 plus teams as of right now. And we made suggestions about what your flow through an agenda would be at a huddle. But that's not what you have to do. Your team can adopt what they want. But generally, it's let's look at what's in flight, what's new. If it's new, do we go forward with it, or do we table it, or we do kibosh it? We used our old terms and put them into KaiNexus, to allow us to make that transition crossover more easier and simpler for people. So we're not changing the language entirely of improvement. It's still the same stuff. It's just now, as John said, we don't lose stuff. It doesn't get lost on a sticky that fell off and got vacuumed up by the cleaning crew at night, that was on the idea board. It's there and it's managed, and there's reminders and there's communication, and there's so much that it does for us as a organization that makes it easier to work with. This is my opinion only, easier to work with idea systems. And it takes a little getting used to, but it's really pretty darn intuitive and simple. For rolling it out to over 8,000 people as of right now, we've had virtually no one saying, I don't want to play, which is surprising to us.
Well, we had a comment come in the chat earlier from one of your colleagues there at UMass Health. Christina said, "My team is up and running on KaiNexus, and the transition was smooth and easy. We find the site easy to use, and the functionality for tracking ideas and progress is great. We tracked our ideas manually before, and having options built in the system is fantastic." So we're always happy to hear that the software is easy to use, but we also know, again, software alone doesn't drive culture. There's the leadership that comes from Dr. Dixon on down, the leadership that comes from the team there at Crosby's that has to add, I think, energy to all of this to where people do feel, or where people are listened to and engaged. That's such a big part of this. One thing I also just remembered to put in the chat, I did look up the audio of Dr. Eric Dixon talking about the early days of his time there at UMass Health and how lean was a helpful turnaround strategy, employee engagement as a turnaround strategy. So we had one other question that came in. It was directed for you, John. So if you're looking at planning for continuous improvement by thinking about lessons learned, corrective actions, training towards ensuring quality, reliability, and zero defects. I guess I'll frame that into, just kind of, in addition to continuous improvement practices, what do you see the role of training and the role of closing the loop? You mentioned this earlier, tracking the effectiveness, tracking lessons learned. Let's say, even if you try something that didn't work, that's how I'll build upon what was submitted there. If that's a question that triggers some thoughts.
So really thinking about effectively solving problems. So every single day in KaiNexus and with all our problems, we're really trying to get to a root cause and put in an effective preventative measure. So as I said earlier, prior to KaiNexus, we would put in a solution and say, okay, guys, we fixed the problem, let's carry on. And we'd probably be talking about the same problem a month later, thinking that our solution was effective, it wasn't. So the simple thing that KaiNexus allows us to do is to set that review date of the implemented improvement. So it automatically does it as a month away, but we can set that to be 6 months or a year, and we can review the actual implementation of the preventative measure as frequently or as often as we like, and it automatically cycles through, comes up in our huddle board. So if it's due for the 20th of May, we'll have reviewed it this morning and said, okay, guys, we implemented this 6 months ago. Are we seeing the results we expected to see? Whereas before KaiNexus, we wouldn't even be asking that question. We would have done it 6 months ago and not even know whether it was effective or not. So that mechanism happening with each improvement or each root cause and each solution just helps solidify that the improvement sticks. And that's how we'd really get to trying to improve quality and safety and all the important metrics.
Mm-hmm. And I know some organizations use KaiNexus to specifically track training and belt certifications. Would be one example of a different use case. Mm-hmm. For KaiNexus.
We haven't used that module yet, so we've actually been working with Taylor on again adapting it, and I know you guys have done a lot of development work on the badges module. So we actually spoke with Taylor this morning, and there's a couple more things that we'd asked for that she's taking back. So so again, it just speaks to the flexibility and the willingness to change and solve our problems.
Yeah, and we appreciate that engagement when customers have ideas and they bring those to us. But you made me think of there was one other thing that you said that I was going to follow up on, and it'll come back to me. We had another question that came in here. I think you've touched on this a little bit, but maybe as a recap. How do you keep informed about new features that are introduced in KaiNexus? How do you try those and roll them out and train them?
I'll just start because we are trying to keep up with the ship, in that regard. Some of these things that have come out, there is a video provided. There's some training material. There's a webinar. I mean, KaiNexus does a darn good job of educating its customer base of what the advantages are. But we're still at the point of rolling out to all of our employees what has been the core. We integrate some of those improvements as we see them applicable, but we're trying not to over-engineer anything yet. There's going to be a phase 2 of this, but we've got to get everybody on board and feeling comfortable with it. So that's kind of our perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And I would really say the same. When it comes to actually implementing and rolling out the training, we always know that KaiNexus and your team are there available to help with the training. So if it's something that I'm not familiar with or a new piece of software, then we'll usually utilize you guys to do it. But oftentimes it's things that are changes to existing systems, so I'll facilitate the training. But we've not really used I've never really used all the videos and things that you guys have got. So I think that's something that I've learned from Rob that we could probably start doing and utilizing a lot more. I'm
in some of those kind of more Kaizen instructional videos. Adam Darnell and others are the product experts, or as we say internally, the KaiNexperts. But there are other videos that Greg Jacobson and I have done that are kind of more about the leadership and methodology side. And our team understands a lot of that and the technology piece that we help all of our customers with. So we're getting close to the top of the hour, and I think we'll go ahead and wrap up because we've got a hard stop here at the top of the hour. But again, just to summarize, I want to really thank our two panelists today, Rob Pitney from UMass Memorial Health, John Brown from Crosby's. If you are in a part of Canada or the Northeast where you see Crosby's products on the shelf, please buy some. I don't know what to say. If you are in the Worcester, Massachusetts area and you need healthcare, please visit our friends at UMass Health. But two very different circumstances, two very different organizations. But it's really exciting to see that the KaiNexus team and our software has played at least some part in supporting you in your improvement journeys and the important work that you do. So Rob and John, thanks to both of you. Thanks to everybody for attending today. And as we say, or I think Adam and the others say it in their videos, we'll see you next time.
Yes.
We make everything something next, right? We'll see you next time. I don't know why I always hesitate to say that, but
thank you.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Take care, guys. Thanks everybody for attending. Thanks for listening to the KaiNexus Continuous Improvement Podcast. Please follow, rate, and review. If you would like to find all past episodes, look in your podcast app, or you can go to kainexus.com/podcast. And to learn more about KaiNexus and how we help organizations in virtually every industry, you can go to kainexus.com. That's KAINEXUS.com.